Ryan Dubow, and welcome to the 30-Minute Drill. I'm here with my guests Jordan Kessel and Scott White, and today we're talking about the NFL. Guys, we're going to start off with the Giants. They're in an 0-2 slump. What went wrong against the Packers this week, and what do they have to do to bounce back next week against the Redskins?
Well, Brett Favre and the Packers really tore up the Giants' secondary, which has been weak in the past. And Tom Coughlin said that his team is yet to play to their full potential, but I'm really starting to doubt it. Next week with the Redskins, they got to watch out for Chris Cooley, the tight end. Their linebackers have to line up with Chris Cooley and stop him.
Scott?
Well, honestly, it's just the defense. They can't keep up with their offense. Their offense is scoring all the points, and the defense just can't back them up. There's poor tackling in the secondary, key injuries, Usi Umenyiora, Will Demps, it's just a lot of key injuries on that Giant defense that really takes down them.
Personally, I think their penalties killed them. They had 6 penalties for 71 yards. All right, moving on. Clemens, Pennington's backup for the Jets, threw 2 interceptions this week. Do you think if the Jets had their starting quarterback, they could have turned this loss into a win?
Well, the Jets really just ran into a better team in the Ravens. The Jets don't have the defense to play with them, and they don't have the offense to play with them. Kellen Clemens did the best job he could for a rookie quarterback, but even though it's his second year, he still hasn't played much. In his first start, you can't really expect him to come out and be really high-powered. The Jets dropped 3 passes in the end zone in the fourth quarter that would have gotten them back into the game. Clemens did a good job, but who knows what Chad would have done.
I disagree completely. I think Clemens did a great job. He came in a rookie quarterback out of nowhere. No one's ever heard of him before. And he comes in, and what should have been a Jets win, turns out they got unlucky in the last drive with 3 drop passes, like Jordan said. If the wide receivers caught those passes, that's a win for the Jets. And for a rookie quarterback, a win against the Baltimore defense is a win that counts.
He went up against a really tough offense. Ray Lewis was blitzing all day, but I guess he just couldn't pull it out in the end. Anyway, the Browns defeated the Bengals this week 51-45. How did the Browns do so well scoring this week compared to last week?
What really impressed me was that the Bengals were able to put up 45 points in any game. What was more impressive is that the Browns, an offense out of nowhere, comes out and scores 51 points. The key to their offense in that game was the running game. Jamal Lewis carried the ball extremely well, going for 215 yards. Out of nowhere, he's had a couple off years since the big year where he rushed for over 2,000 yards. But since then, he really hasn't been able to get anything going, and this really was a big step for him.
I just want to begin by saying the Browns are amazing. Derek Anderson comes in right after Charlie Frye was traded and ties the NFL season record for the Browns in touchdown passes. 5 touchdown passes on his very first start. Braylon Edwards had 2 touchdowns, and on top of that, they had 215 yards with just Jamal Lewis alone. And as a defense, if you give up 215 yards in any single game, you can't come out of that game winning.
I totally agree with you, Scott. Derek Anderson did a great job starting for his first game. He threw 328 yards. But next, we're going to talk about the Texans shockingly defeated the Panthers this week, 34-21. Do you think that this win was a fluke, or will it continue next week against the Colts?
Well, the Texans really have showed that they are pretty good. Looking from David Carr to Matt Schaub, you think it might have been the offensive line, but something's going on there. For Matt Schaub's really ignited that offense, throwing the ball to Andre Johnson deep. Amon Green started to run the ball pretty well. He hadn't been doing so great with the Packers at the end of last season, has stepped it up this year. And the Texans are for real. They're playing a good defense. They're stopping teams on offense. They run into the Colts next week. The Colts are the Colts. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. They're good. I mean, the key for that game for the Colts is going to be their run defense and what they can do to stop Amon Green and the Texans and force it on Matt Schaub.
I definitely agree with Jordan. Matt Schaub comes in there, just goes 20 for 28, 227 yards, has a great opener. Andre Johnson, 7 receptions, touchdown. They impressed me, to say the least.
All right, guys, one more quick question. The underestimated Titans came up just short of the victory over the Super Bowl-winning Colts. Why do you think teams are having such difficulty with the Titans?
It's the running game. Vince Young is really just igniting the offense, and the running game has been amazing.
Scott?
I think it's Vince Young. These defenses have to go out there stopping the run game at the running back, stopping the run game at Vince Young, and stop the pass game, which they have all three of those on their offense. So I think Vince Young is definitely the deciding factor.
Thanks, guys. We'll be back with more predictions after this. Welcome back. We're going to start off today by talking about predictions for next week. We'll start off with the Giants, guys. Giants versus Redskins next week. Can their Giants defense catch up with their offense?
Oh, the defense is going to be in big trouble next week. Jason Campbell has been turning it around a little bit. And with all the weapons he's got, Chris Cooley, Antoine Randall, Liddell Betts, and Clinton Portis, and Santana Moss, that is a high-powered offense. Once the offensive line gets it figured out a little bit, not as many false start penalties, they're going to be really a force to reckon with.
I say no way also. Giants they're falling apart, really. They're injury-prone very much in the defense especially. Redskins 2-0 after last night's win against Philly, which turned out to be a big disappointment in my opinion. I don't think the Giants can pull it off at all.
Personally, I think they will tighten up and help Eli win, come out with a W. Next, we'll move on to Jets versus Dolphins. Should you start Chad Pennington with his injury?
Well, of course you should start him. I mean, he was number 2 in the depth chart last week, which means he was suited, he was able to play, yet they decided to go with the young Kellen Clemens. Chad really knows the offense a little bit better, so you got to put him in. He can't lose his job to injury. The only thing is his wide receivers have to wait sometimes for the ball because he doesn't have the strongest arm. Sometimes they'll get laid out. If the Jets start losing even more, then maybe we'll see a switch mid-season, Kellen Clemens. But for this week against the Dolphins, the Jets should definitely start Chad Pennington.
I disagree again, same thing as before. I think definitely Kellen Clemens should be the starter on the Jets offense. I mean, versus the Baltimore defense, probably, if not the best defense in the NFL, he brought a W to that team. Not entirely because they didn't win, but I think they should have. They had 3 drive passes on the last drive again. And versus the Dolphins defense, I definitely think they could pull it together.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't want to risk any further injury. You should let him heal completely. All right, next, Bengals versus Seattle. Do you think the Bengals defense can step up to Matt Hasselbeck?
Well, no way. I mean, the Bengals played the Browns last week and gave up 51 points. Their defense is in trouble, especially going against Seattle offense, which has Sean Alexander in the backfield. There is no way, no matter how many points their offense scores, they're always going to be playing catch-up because their defense is not going to get any stops.
Personally, I think the Bengals defense is great. I mean, they're versing a Browns offense, which is impenetrable in my opinion. With Jamal Lewis, Braylon Edwards, Derek Anderson, I mean, there's just no way that any defense in the NFL could stop that. But personally, I think the Bengals will beat Seattle.
Well, Matt Hasselbeck and Deion Branch are a deadly combination, so we'll see.
No.
Up next, my favorite game, the Titans versus the Saints. Can Drew Brees lead his team to a win over the Titans?
The Saints have been a real surprise this year, going 0-2. But, I think they'll find a way to turn it around. Drew Brees just got so many weapons on his offensive side that they'll figure it out. They'll get Deuce McAllister, Reggie Bush, Marquise Colston they'll get everything going good. They'll figure it out. The defense will start stepping up in the secondary. And I think they'll find a way to win. I think they need to do it, and I think they will.
I think the Titans are going to take this one personally. The Saints are 0-2 out of their first 2 games. Drew Brees he's struggling a little, so is Reggie Bush. They're not doing nearly as well as I thought they would do. Titans, they're having a good start. They nearly beat the Super Bowl champions from last year, Indianapolis Colts last week, and I think that a lot of team defenses are just having a really hard time containing Vince Young.
Drew Brees, he's just not an accurate quarterback. He threw 26 or 44 against the Bucs, so I think that the Titans will come out with a win. Next up, Chargers versus the Packers. Will LT find his groove again?
Well, yeah, you got to think so. I mean, the guy was the MVP last year. He did so good last year. You got to figure he'll put it together somehow. I mean, Norv Turner's still learning that offense, what he needs to do with his players. I mean, it's the same system, but he still needs to know how to use his players. The Packers, yeah, they've shown that they can be pretty good, but the Chargers are just a better team.
Yeah, definitely, I think so. Chargers, the Pack, they won last week, they won the week before, but I think the luck's going to run out on this game against the Chargers. LT, he'll step it up definitely against that Packer defense. Philip Rivers has been, he's playing pretty good, and they'll definitely pull it together against the Packers next week.
All right, guys, great opinions. We'll be back with more 30-minute drill after this. Welcome back to a 30-minute drill. I'm Brian Dubow, alongside me Jordan Kessel and Scott White. Guys, we're going to talk about a little fantasy football today. So we'll start off. Is Matt Schaub for real?
Well, he's got to be. I mean, he's got so many weapons around him. He's got Amon Green, which is extremely underrated, in my opinion. Jacoby Jones is his second wide receiver, who is going to start stepping it up a little bit. He's got Andre Johnson, who is, the top 5 fantasy wide receiver in the entire league. So with all the weapons around him and the offensive line playing a little bit better, he's found the right mix for that offense. I mean, David Carr was there for so long, but Matt Schaub has found the right way to make that offense work and make that offense spin.
Matt Schaub, he's doing good so far, but I don't see him. I don't see him going that big. He did great last week against Carolina, but, it's Carolina. He threw well. He got some good passes, 2 touchdowns, I think. But personally, I just think he's a fluke, I think. His luck will run out.
Sorry, Scott. I agree with Jordan. I think he's just always hooking up with receivers, making good passes. Moving on. San Diego wide receivers. Who do you play?
Well, they're playing the Packers this week, which favors the passing game a little bit more than normal. They're going to find a way to get LaDainian Tomlinson working early, which is going to open the passing game towards the middle of the game. You already got the first option there, which is Antonio Gates. But if you're looking for a wide receiver to play in maybe a flex spot this week, Vincent Jackson is a pretty good person to fill in that spot. I mean, Philip Rivers, not that many options to go to besides Antonio Gates, and he seems to, in his second year, seems like he's going to emerge as the top receiver out there in San Diego. So maybe you want to slot him in this week in maybe a deeper 12-team league with a flex spot. He might do something special for you.
I think Vincent Jackson will be good also against that defense. Antonio Gates, I think, will be a little bit better. That Packers secondary, they're not bad, but they're lacking in a little size. And Vincent Jackson, 6'5", Antonio Gates, 6'4". They can do some swing passes to LT across the back. I think that they could just easily take advantage of their receivers and Philip Rivers over that small Packer defense, and they'll definitely put it forward.
LT, once you get him the ball, I mean, he's just going to the end zone. No one can tackle him. Who's a good waiver wire steal this week?
Well, I talked about it a little bit before when we were on Matt Schaub. Amon Green has really stepped it up a little bit. His numbers don't look as good as they should, but I really think that's going to start stepping up once teams start to honor the passing game a little bit more. So he's probably good for, 85 yards and a touch this week. So if you're looking for a flex position there, he's probably a good spot. I don't know if you want to start him in a league you're only playing two running backs, but he's definitely good enough to play this week.
Scott?
I'm saying Derek Anderson. Last week 5 touchdown passes. Fantasy sports, that's how much? 30 points right off the back. Ties the Browns NFL season record in one game. I mean, he just did outstanding in his game against Cincinnati.
Good points. All right, Colton, do you sit him or do you start him?
Well, Marquise Colston is an interesting situation. The Saints offense was so high-powered last year, and last year he had tight end eligibility in most leagues. it was a must-play every week. But now that he's a wide receiver, it's starting to get a little shaky. Yeah, I still start him because he's still the number one option in that offense since they've gotten rid of Joe Horn. So I think you definitely start him. I don't know if you expect the same numbers, as one of the other top-tier wide receivers, but he's going to be a top wide receiver this year, and I think you just plug him in every week and play him. Don't worry about how that offense is doing.
I think Marcus Colston's going to be a bust this year in fantasy sports, I think. The Saints, they're 0-2 out of the first two games. I mean, Reggie Bush isn't doing anything. And when you don't have a running game, passing game lacks a lot because, you always have those secondary dropping back, covering the wide receivers a little bit better. It's going to be hard for them to utilize him.
All right, guys, real quick. Any running back help?
Well, Lendale White in Tennessee has taken over the goal line role. So Chris Brown's not getting as many yards. Lendale White's getting all the carries by the end zone.
Scott?
I think Derek Ward from the Giants, now with what's his name, Brandon Jacobs out. Derek Ward had a great day against the Packers. I think he will put it back together again next week.
Guys, those are all valid points. We'll be back with more 30-minute drill after this.
Hello and welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm here with my co-hosts, Alex and Bobby, and we're here to talk about the baseball season. It's autumn and it's time for the hunt for October. Now let's see who we think is going to make the playoffs. Let's start with the NL. In the NL West, there are 3 teams going for that spot. There's the Padres, Diamondbacks, and Rockies. Who do you guys think is going to take it?
I think the Diamondbacks are going to come away with this. They've had a phenomenal second half, and I think they can get the job done.
I think the Diamondbacks just because they have a big lead, but the Padres can keep it close.
I think I'm going to have to agree with Bobby here in that the Padres could really make a run because they have such a dominant pitching staff, and their hitting finally is good enough to complement it this year. So I think they're going to take it over the inexperienced Diamondbacks. Let's move on to the NL Central. It's become a 2-horse race with the Brewers and the Cubs. The Cardinals are really fading away, so who do you guys think is going to take it?
Brewers, hands down. Their rookie Ryan Braun has just played phenomenal since he's came up, and Prince Fielder hitting a lot of home runs this year. They have a powerful offense. They could do it.
I think the Cubs just because they have a solid hitting and they have some good pitching, but the Brewers have no pitching.
I agree with what you're saying, Bob. The Brewers' pitching has folded. Brewers have a lot of young talent. The Cubs have a lot of veteran talent. I think the Cubs are going to take it. In the wild card, let's move to the AL. It seems like the Yankees have really run away with it. The Tigers and the Mariners are somewhat close, but what do you guys think is going to happen?
Well, the Yankees, if they don't come back to win the division, the wild card is definitely going to be theirs, and I think that no doubt it's going to come from the AL East this year.
Bob?
I think the Yankees deserve to win their division, but they have the Red Sox, so that's tough. They'll definitely win the wild card.
I agree. I think the Yankees are too good to lose it. The Tigers have really, really disappointed this year. Now let's move on to the NL. A lot of teams are in this race, a lot of possibilities. Where is it going to go?
I'm going to have to say the Phillies on this one. With their lineup is just phenomenal. They had a great second half, big sweep over the Mets this weekend. I think they can do it.
I think it'll be the Padres just because they have a solid pitching staff, and the Phillies are a few games back, so that's.
I think I'm going to have to go with Alex here. Even though the Phillies are back, their team is too strong to lose this. I think their team is by far much better than the other ones, and after they've rebounded from these injuries, I think their pitching may hold up enough to be able to win this wild card. Now let's go on to the awards. The AL MVP, there's 2 really players who have a chance of winning it, but it looks like Alex Rodriguez, right?
Yeah, he just second half and first half all around year unbelievable, putting up unbelievable numbers. There's no way he won't win it.
Bob?
Yeah, I think A-Rod, no doubt. He has 52 home runs, 141 RBIs, 315 average. He could win the Triple Crown.
I got to go with A-Rod too, but I think that Magli Ordonez's achievements this year are underscored. He's been the rock of that team to even keep them competitive after all those disappointments in terms of injuries and lack of pitching production is amazing. Let's go to the NL MVP. This is the most wide open race I can remember. So many options from so many different teams. No one has emerged to take the lead. Who's going to win it?
David Wright. I mean, best team in the NL and best player on the best team. That's what the most valuable player is.
I think David Wright could win it. He's hitting 30-30 and he has 315 average. But I think it also could be Matt Holliday because he's been hitting very well. He has a 330 average, so you never know.
I mean, I can understand where both of you are coming from there, but I think I'm going to have to take the riskier pick, and I'm going to go with Chase Utley, the second baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies. Chase Utley is one of the game's underrated best players at one of the least important positions, but he's really, really been productive there. I mean, without him, the Phillies this year were 15-13, but they've really exploded with him. He's been a great hitter, and though his stats aren't that great due to his injury, I think he really should have a shot at winning the NL MVP. And now let's move on to the Cy Young, the pitching award. In the AL and NL, it looks like a pretty wide open race. Who's going to take it?
I think Dan Herron, I mean, he's had an unbelievable first half. Second half, he kept it up. Microscopic ERA for most of the year. I think he can come away with the Cy Young.
I think it'll be Josh Beckett. He's been 19-6. He can win 20 games this year. He's playing for the Red Sox also. I think he'll win the Cy Young.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Herron really did have a tremendous first half. When it comes down to it, the A's aren't really in contention. Josh Beckett has had a magnificent year, finally coming through on the promise that he showed as a young prospect and for the best team. I agree. Now let's move on to Rookie of the Year. Quick hits. AL Rookie of the Year. One name. Who's it going to be?
Dustin Pedroia.
Bobby.
Joakim Soria.
Wow. It's an interesting pick, the closer on the Royals. And NL Rookie of the Year. Same thing. Who's it going to be?
Ryan Braun.
Ryan Braun.
I think that most people are choosing Ryan Braun, but I'm going to have to go with Troy Tulowitzki here. His defense cannot be underscored. He's had an incredible season at the game's most important position, and he's been kind of overlooked on the Rockies, but he really has had a great year. And I think that's about as much time as we have in here today. And when we come back, can a QB from Kentucky really win the Heisman? Stay tuned. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill, and as everybody knows, it's football season, but not just the NFL because college football has just started too. Now this week was the beginning of in-conference matchups, and some big games went on. Let's just start by talking about the number one ranked team in the nation, USC. Guys, they played Nebraska this week and once again routed another team. What's your analysis?
USC is a very excellent team. They have an excellent offense and excellent defense. They have All-American linebackers, Keith Rivers, Brian Cushing. They also have an excellent running game with the number 1 and 2 recruits left from this year, Joe McKnight and Mark Tyler. And they have Stephon Johnson, who came out of nowhere with 13 carries for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, right. USC is a great team overall. There's no doubt that they're going to win over Nebraska. They have a good team, great offense, great defense, good overall.
You're right, guys. As we all know, like every year, USC is strong, but the question is, are they championship strong? And I guess we're going to have to see that in the upcoming weeks. Now let's move on to another big game. Florida killed Tennessee, and it would appear that the only matchup for Florida in the SEC this year is going to be LSU. Would you guys agree?
I would agree about that. There also is Georgia has an okay team with Matt Stafford, and also Alabama with Nick Saban, and Arkansas has Darren McFadden, so there are other teams. But Florida has Tim Tebow and Percy Harvin, who are just excellent players, and that offense is very explosive. I don't think anyone's going to stop them besides LSU.
Josh?
Like Brandon said, yeah, Florida's a great team, other good teams, but Florida will come up on top.
Mm-hmm. It really does look like it's going to be Florida at the top of the SEC against LSU, with those other good teams coming up a little bit short, I think. However, another big game this week, possibly the biggest game, was a ranked team, the number 9 ranked Louisville, with their star quarterback Brian Brom, playing against an unranked Kentucky team, as we all know, had their star quarterback Andre Woodson. Now, these guys have been rivals since high school, and in this game, Andre Woodson came back with 27 seconds left and threw a 57-yard touchdown pass to win the game. Your thoughts?
Kentucky is a very excellent team. Andre Johnson, who has been a quarterback for Kentucky for 4 years, has been playing Brian Brom since they were in high school. And finally, Andre Woodson, pardon me, I said Johnson, beat him in one of the biggest games in Kentucky's history.
Josh?
It was a big upset. Louisville is a very good team, but Kentucky did really well and came up on top and beat them.
Thanks, guys. And obviously some other big games this week. Alabama under Nick Saban came up big to beat the ranked Arkansas. And also, BC beat another ranked team in Georgia Tech. So those look like they could have some ramifications for the bowl games. Now let's move on a little bit to talk about a Big East conference. Now this conference obviously was picked apart a few years back by the ACC, taking some of their best teams. But it appears that they've had a huge reemergence with Louisville, West Virginia, Rutgers, and South Florida. Guys, what's it going to be like for the Big East this season?
They're going to have they're probably the second or third best conference behind obviously the SEC, which is dominant. But there's teams like South Florida coming out of nowhere with an excellent quarterback, Brian Grothy, who is an excellent player. Rutgers has Ray Rice, Mike Teal, and Kenny Britt at receiver, who's good. West Virginia has an explosive offense with Steve Slayton, Noel Devine, Pat White, and the big fullback Ian Snelling. And Louisville is a very good team. That one loss might end their chances at national championship, but they still can make a BCS game by winning the Big East.
Yeah, basically what Brandon said was, overall, the Big East is a very good conference. Great players, offense, defense, everything.
I think what's going to come down to in the Big East is that, yes, obviously West Virginia has a tremendous offense in White and Slayton especially. And Louisville has that quarterback Brom and that great passing game. But with that loss, there's no way they're going to be able to have a chance at the national championship going on. It looks very unlikely that any of these teams is going to come out with undefeated or even some with one loss. If any team did, obviously they'd have a chance at the national title. But it looks like this conference has gotten much stronger over the past few years. Now let's talk about college football as a whole. Obviously, the biggest award in college football, the Heisman. Right now, there's been plenty of Heisman speculation, usually with John David Booty, the quarterback of USC, and Darren McFadden, the running back at Arkansas, at the forefront. But let's see what your guys' opinions are on this subject.
I think Colt Brennan is also up there from Hawaii. They don't play the best teams, but he's probably the best quarterback in the nation. They pass the ball 50 or 60 times a game, and he throws usually 5 touchdowns and over 300 yards. He's up there. Also, Ray Rice and Steve Slayton are the best 2 running backs with Dan McFadden. All 3 of them also have a very good chance.
Josh?
Yeah, I think Andre Woodson from Kentucky has a good chance because of that win over Louisville. And Ray Rice from Rutgers, also a very good candidate.
I think I'm going to have to agree with Josh here. I mean, this may be the year of the running back, but it really looks like if Andre Woodson can continue this, leading this unranked, weak Kentucky team to especially an undefeated record right now, I think he should have a serious shot at the Heisman. That's about all the time we have right here. I hope next week we can come back and see the 30-minute drill, and I'd like to leave you with one great quote. When you walk, walk hard. And when you run along your knees.